So good afternoon, my name is Charles Stewart. I'm one of the IIM directors. Welcome to this webinar in which Ian and Stuart will take you through in a minute. I will let them introduce themselves. We will have an hour session. We'll have about 40 minutes on content, 15 minutes on Q&As. Please put your questions in the Q&A button, not the chat button, and we will get to them at a later stage in the session. This will be recorded when I press the record button again. It's going and will be shared with you at a later point. And with that, I shall just that and share the content. Let's get going. Boom. Okay, hopefully you are seeing the right screen now.
Yep, I think so.
Perfect. Just need this thing at the top to disappear. Okay, I just want to make sure we are recording. We are. Okay, Stuart, over to you.
Okay, hello, good afternoon, everybody. This is the first webinar of a trilogy entitled "How to Be a Successful Interim Manager," and I'll talk about exactly what this particular one contains in a second. Next slide, please. As I said, we've got three webinars. They've been designed and run by seasoned interim managers. So a little gang of us were working on this last year. They were first presented in 2025, and in conversation with the IIM team, reckoned that that they'd be good for to be run again this year. Why? We felt our learning as a small group of, as we said, seasoned interim was worth sharing, and especially now, or certainly for the last sort of couple of years, where times have been tough economy-wise. The design is designed to be slightly provocative, so please, as Charles says, ask questions, disagree with us, and it'd be great to get your perspective as well. Next slide, please. I think Charles alluded to it. There'll be a feedback link at the end, and there is actually a current WhatsApp group for members where there is an amount of sort of post webinar conversation that happens, and you'll receive an invitation to that. Next slide, please. Ian, over to you for a bit of an intro.
Right. Hi, everyone. Ian Watkins. Brief little profile about me. My background or career track centrally is procurement. So typically my clients are corporates. There's a few names that you might recognize along the bottom of this slide. I've spent a long time working in life sciences sector broadly. I'm currently on assignment with a global antibiotics business, which is proving to be very interesting. In terms of key discipline areas: procurement, spend management, risk reduction. You can see ERP systems on here. I've also spent a long time working in around commercial property transformation, so a lot of workplace programs for clients that want to improve those working areas for retain and recruitment purposes. Sector-wise, quite broad. I started off my career in commercial construction. I said a long time in life sciences, healthcare, pharma, medical devices, private healthcare and the like. I've also worked in large FMCG, media and broadcasting, and consulting. And I've been an interim manager for 14 years. Partly took that route out of circumstance and choice. They came together at a point in time. And this is now my established means of working.
So Stuart Copeland, that's me. Like Ian said, my interim career started off as a bit of the business I was working was sold, didn't fancy the new owners. So I think circumstance and choice describes the way I started as well. So easiest way to describe what I do: I'm a project and program manager. Processes, new products, services. It's all business change related. It's going through from the original idea, the original strategy, through to go live. Very often projects that the companies haven't done before. and often working with people who are, the project teams are made up of people who've got day jobs as well. So that's the projects as homework reference. Lots of automotive, lots of engineering support services. So quite a bit of sort of engineering vehicle based types of customers. And so you'll see a nice list of former clients, current clients down the bottom of the slide. So next slide, please. So we'll talk about exactly what's covered in this slide in a second. But the second of these webinars, next bullet, is we'll go. Two other people will go through in more detail the value proposition and business development, and in the third webinar, we talk more about how you sort of prepare for assignments. Sort of conversations you might have going into them with the ISP, with the customer, and then what you can do during and beyond the assignment. Next slide, please. So Ian and I on this webinar will be talking about the first sort of slices around interim managers DNA. The second area is around your strategy and your plan. So, I'm sure most of you advocate that businesses should have some kind of a plan. Well, why wouldn't you do it yourself? The third area will be around business readiness. That's looking after yourself, setting up the company. And the fourth area is the building that business. And then we all have downtime. So how do we manage that? So next slide, please. So again, this is our perspective of what we think we all are, if you like. So I think most established interim managers would not call themselves gap fillers. So they're change agents. In terms of the lifestyle, it's very much a conscious and intentional thing. It's, as Ian said, it's something which is a chosen way of working for the long term. It isn't something which you just do between jobs. I think most of us are built for change or inspired by change. Obviously, it can be quite intense, but I think you work with people who are, it's harder for people in business to embrace change. I think maybe than it is for us. You have to be results driven. I think that's a given. And then you really need to be resilient and cope well with uncertainty or potentially embrace uncertainty. I think we all probably fulfill relatively senior roles. So I think most of the people that I know in this world are pretty experienced and pretty much plenty of expertise. One of the key things is that if you're going into this world, you will not be utilised at 100%. If you are, you probably won't be able to sustain it. In terms of sort of traits, I think as I alluded to in the previous slide, it's the seasoned interims are in it for the long term. They've made it a career choice. They've made a career choice around that they need to plan their life around, and ultimately you are 100% accountable for everything. You are in business on your own account. You need to have a clear value proposition, need to understand your market. I think really, really importantly, as a bit like if you're working in a headcount role in a big business, you have a number of things that protect you and your family, and you need to recreate that in your own business. It's critical if you want to stay in business, but equally if you want to improve your rates and work with lots of different companies, then you need to make sure that you're looking after your own personal development. And it's not necessarily something you can do by yourself. So certainly I'd recommend having a coach or a mentor. And finally, I think one of the things from my experience is that whilst there are plenty of benefits of working in this way, one of the key things is around control of your own diary and choice. And you have the freedom to do all sorts of things, provided you can pay for it. And that's obviously driven from your marketing and your success at generating business. Next slide, please. Could you just do a few clicks through on this? So I think most most interims, the key thing is around diagnosis. Most of us will go into an organisation to identify what the problems are and then fix them, and then constructive challenge will be the next big sort of push. So, don't be. I don't think many of us are frightened to be quite challenging to our customers to ensure they get to the right way of doing things. Next slide, please. One of the key things here is that we look at this as a shift from master-servant relationship in a sort of a permanent headcount role to a peer-to-peer relationship when you're working with working as an interim. So, it's quite commonly said that when as an interim, you should be going to a business meeting with a customer, as opposed to, obviously, a lot of the interim providers tend to think of this as being an interview with a potential employer. So certainly I'd definitely advocate you need to be thinking about it being a sort of peer-to-peer relationship. You will recognise on the left-hand side the sort of permanent stroke employee factors. And then on the right-hand side, how it changes. So as opposed to you're employed, you have your own business, as opposed to having your objectives set. When you arrive on site for an assignment, you are starting almost with a blank sheet of paper. So you will be doing the diagnosis, you will be creating a program, you'll be identifying and owning outcomes. And I think so the final point on this slide really is that this is the ultimate 0 hours contract, and it's really important that you think of it that you are 100% responsible for your own business development. Next slide, please. So in terms of a strategy and a plan, why wouldn't you? As I said earlier, you'll be advocating that your customers have plans and strategies, and treat yourself as a business. If you're treating yourself as a business, then you're going to be looking at how the market works. And these are figures that we've taken from the IIM. So 4.3 million self-employed people, of which something like 1.5 million freelancers and contractors, of which their estimate is there might be 10,000 interim managers, although that's quite tough to say. And in terms of the freelance and contractor world, you'll see that the age range is sort of more senior people, I think is probably the polite way to say that. I think that covers that one. So next slide, please. We didn't want to run away from the fact that it's been a tough environment. So for the last 2 or 3 years, can I click through, please? It's been quiet in 2024 and 2025, and I think it seems to be continuing so far in 2026. Certainly in the world of business change that I live in, there's been a lack of investment. So basically no or low investment in the areas where businesses need to make changes, and therefore that's had a knock on in terms of the opportunities for projects and programs. Our view is that this is a unique period. Certainly in my lengthy time in the industry, I've been through lots and lots of recessions and economic problems, but this period is weird and unique. But it will improve because it has to. At some point, companies have to fix stuff because they can't not invest for forever. Next slide, please. So if you're setting up your business, it doesn't matter who you are, you need to really understand what your value proposition is. And in our view, the key thing that you need to understand is what problem is it that you solve for organizations? So looking at it from the perspective of your customers, from my point of view as a program manager, it's often about risk. Or a company decides to embark on a project which we're about reducing cost or providing opportunities to increase its revenue, but actually most of the time it's about reducing risk. But in discussion with this, when we were creating this, there are also other areas which might sound a bit counterintuitive, like you might want to spend money to save money in the future. So really important when you're talking about your value proposition that you create it with somebody else because you need that external perspective and you need somebody to properly challenge you. And again, if you want to make it really, really powerful for your potential customers, then metrics are really important. And I think the key thing here is whether the value proposition ends up on a piece of A4 or a glamorous PowerPoint presentation doesn't really matter. It's the thought process which is key here. And I think for most of us, our value propositions should work across different functions and sectors. Next slide, please. Once you've got it, how do you get it out there? One of the things that you could really, which is really useful, and you may be surprised by what customers perceive as your value, is when you ask them about it. So, for example, you deliver a project quite happily, but you find out that a number of people within the project have actually learned a ton and happy to go on to be project managers in the future. Bit of a daft example, but you only get to find those things out if you ask. And it's about picking what channels do you want to push that message out to, and the key thing is that you're looking for the area that the people with those problems that you solve live in. So that can be a market, it can be our ISP. So the internet service providers do work in different sectors and they do cover different functional areas. So choose wisely. And then it's about being consistent and being relentless. So getting that message out on a regular basis via website tends to be a bit static. LinkedIn is an opportunity to become a thought leader. CV is, I think, less important, but certainly conversations that you have with everybody, if you can be clear in terms of what your value proposition is, it can be very helpful. Next slide, please. And then, as we talked about earlier, having a business plan is critical. My mantra is always you need to work out what your life goals are before you set your business goals. And actually, even if it was not business goals, it's what you want to do with your career and stuff like that. It's critical that you do that first. Next bullet, please. And then once you've identified what your goals are, then it's really, what is the strategy that you're going to use to achieve it? So, what are those, breaking down that strategy down into its tactics and actions to get the thing in place. Again, as with the value proposition, it's definitely worth sitting down with somebody else on your plan because I've always done it with my wife, who happens to be a co-director in our little business. But it's critical that you get an external perspective on your plan in the same way you do with your value proposition, that you write it down and that you review it every year. Next slide. And I'm not going to go through this in any great detail, but this is actually, this is an anonymized version of what I've used for a large number of years. Really does, the usual step from vision strategy down into the tactics and how you deliver what you want to do, with budget and risk in there too. And this really has been really, really, really useful for me to have a fairly successful career. Next slide, please. And with that, I'll hand over to Ian.
Okay, great. Thanks, Stuart. Next slide, please, Charles. Thanks. So several background items here. We're really moving into the phase of you have a good idea of where you want to go with this interim proposition, but you need to translate that and transform that into a business that you can operate to provide certain things that you're going to need. So we've started off this piece of the presentation and the thinking around some of the key foundational pieces around looking after yourself and your business and the people around you. There are several things that you give up when you go into a life of interim management that you may have been used to having as part of your corporate packages. If you make the assumption that a lot of interims come from the corporate world, given that we're typically with business related people. So things like life insurance, health insurance, private healthcare, critical insurance critical illness cover. Those are typically bundled benefits, and you'll need to, if you want to continue those, provide those yourself through your own company. Without wanting to sound too grand around wealth creation, most people will want, of course, to accumulate, let's use the wealth word, certainly so financial provision for now and future. So what arrangements do you need in place for pension, ISAs, property, non-pension investments and the like? We're not saying that all of these are mandatory as a portfolio, but they are certainly things to think about. Are you working smart with regard to things like current account savings, offset mortgages? Some people are well aware of them, some people use them, some people have never heard of offset mortgages. So across your whole financial environment, I would certainly say be astute, do your research, talk to people. And I'm not sure if we've got it on the slides, but a very experienced interim that I worked with as I was really starting my journey said to me very clearly, if you're going into interim, you need at least 6 months' money in the bank. Personally, today, I think it's a year plus to make sure that you can weather the storm or the dry periods that will come. As Stuart said, there will be periods of famine as well as feast, and you need to get yourself through that. From business perspective, what are you going to retain in your business in terms of retained funds? Do you have any alternative income streams? And certainly you will find that your clients, the vast majority of them will expect you to be insured suitably. PI is commonly requested, and public and employer's liability and potentially key person insurance are all things that you should have front of mind. Let's move on, please. Support network. This this can be at times a lonely path that we walk along, and having people around you, whether that's literally in the household or your friends, family, your professional network, you will find that a sounding board is essential from time to time. It is a fulfilling way to work. It also can be highly demanding, whether that's in terms of expectations, deliverables, burning the midnight oil, all of these things. We have had some comments in the interim IIM hearts, beds and bucks comments from one or two people saying, when you're on your own, it can be pretty lonely, and I think that would be a fair reflection. You also have, of course, access to people in your professional institutions like the IIM. I would just say take the opportunity to talk to people, use them as a sounding board, ask them for their counsel. A fresh pair of eyes and a fresh pair of ears can work wonders in helping you navigate the journey that you're on. Okay, next slide. Some items around legal fundamentals. So you do need to set yourself up. This is a business world. The vast majority of interim managers, I would say, would be operating through a limited company. You may be aware of terminologies like PSCs. They were let's say, a determining evaluation around what type of company are we running. But what are the options? Is it limited company? Is it a micro consultancy? Is it an LLP? Is it sole trader? I don't know what the percentages are, but I would have thought the vast majority will be in a micro limited company in terms of people who are operating in the interim world. But some other factors to consider. How many directors of the business do you want to have? You could be sole director, founder, owner. You may want other people in that business, depends on the scale. Do you want a company secretary? And I would say, again, talk to the relevant people, including accountant, around how you might want to structure your shareholding. I won't go into that now, but there are things that you can do to use shareholding advantageously from let's call it a distribution of funds perspective. Moving on, still on the considerations, I would hope people on this call will be aware of there are VAT registration statutory requirements. I think the threshold now is 90,000 turnover per year. As you approach that, you should register. If you are beyond that threshold, then I would say you're earning or your business is generating a revenue which is moving into the attractive world. But certainly be aware of the requirement for VAT registration. Beyond a threshold is not a choice, it's a requirement. Do you choose not to have or not have a website? It's a debatable point. What are you doing in your social media area? Are you active? Are you present? Are you visible? IR35, I think the legislation is starting to soften, but it has been hugely problematic. And again, we may have a mix of people on this call in terms of whether they are established interim managers or people who are starting their journey or early in their journey. IR35 has been a problem. I think it will soften. I think the risk is starting to dissipate a little bit, but certainly be very clear about what roles you would be interested in having conversations around as to whether they are inside or outside of IR35, because your revenue and tax treatment, of course, is very different. How would you charge? Day rate is, in some areas, almost de facto, but there are conversations that take place around fixed price or results-based remuneration. Different considerations for each one, especially in the results-based arena. So if you are thinking about or being drawn into that conversation, I would just say be very astute and make sure that the payout would match the results. I certainly know of people who have gone down that route and have had problems when the client has said, ultimately, I won't pay you that much, yet the rewards or the results on their commercial framework indicated that the amount was due, but the client thought that was too much money to pay when it came time to write the check, so to speak. In terms of your client base, personally, I tend to be block assignment, so single client at any point in time. Fractional is becoming popular, certainly being talked about a lot. And the portfolio approach, which is multiple clients in hand concurrently, I think would be the ideal. It reinforces in business as a truly, what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, as a bona fide business, having multiple clients concurrently will massively reinforce your case if you ever had an investigation. And if you're not aware of it, if your business handles any form of personal or private data, you must register with the ICO. Okay, let's move on. Business operations. We are running businesses here, and there are things that we need to do. And some of those things we might choose to do ourselves, and some of them we might choose to outsource. An accountant service, there are platforms these days. You can do a lot of the accountancy work yourself in terms of bookkeeping, transactions, reconciliation. You can even get to the point where you can prepare VAT reports and annual accounts for submission. I take the view that an accountant's professional eyes are very worth having, and I think the vast majority of people do have an accountant in some service capacity. Some just review and sign off the accounts, others have a much deeper, broader role. I won't read all the way through the bookkeeping piece, but it is important that you keep detailed records. You will hopefully know that the world is moving to making tax digital, MTD. There are multiple platforms out there that make this life a lot easier, as in online platforms, some of which are bundled with bank accounts, but you should do your research there. Ultimately, you need to run a compliant business and have have as few red flags as possible. Do you want to have a virtual assistant? Personally, I don't. I think you would need a certain level of complexity, demands multiple clients, multiple programs to warrant it, but each to their own. It is a fairly well-populated world of VAs, and those services are available easily, readily. Okay, let's move on again. We've touched on the digital services from a tax and accounting perspective, but there are, and I won't go into this in detail, there are multiple software, of course, that will make our lives easier, whether that goes from note-taking and therefore being able to mine your notes rather than taking handwritten. It's a huge world, but I would say pick your tools carefully. A credible business email address, in my view, is absolutely essential. No offense to anybody on this call, but Yahoo's, Hotmail's, and Gmail's, personally, I don't think does us credit as professional interims. Microsoft is de facto still. I'm sure everyone here is on LinkedIn. The debate here would be whether or not you need additional services like Premium or Sales Navigator. They have their place. They can be very useful, but they cost money. Do you run a CRM? Stuart, for example, does not. He does it through his own methodology and does it very well. Others would say a CRM platform makes their life easier. So again, evaluate the options and think carefully. I will not go through the rest in detail because I think you can read the words here, and I would expect most people in this world will be thinking around, well, can I use encryption? Can AI make my life easier? Do I need a chat type AI to help me on research and preparing content? But I won't go into those in detail because it would take too long. Marketing and social media. The key piece here, and I think Stuart alluded to it earlier as well, is regular output. I would say I've dabbled in the area of social media and LinkedIn over the years. I think it's something you need rigor to do. The LinkedIn algorithm is very dynamic. Frequent content vastly outweighs scale of content, i.e. writing white papers and the like. But I think that platform is also becoming very diluted with what's regularly now being termed AI slop. And I personally see a lot of that. So I would say if you're going to use LinkedIn and other platforms for frequent content, I would say absolutely write it as human created. Make it authentic, and there's a distinct difference, of course, between being provocative and being negative, but certainly bring your experience forward in a true gritty way, always focusing on, I would say, either client pain or client opportunity and results. It's not actually about us, it's about what we can do for the client. That's where we're trying to appeal to. I think we can move on. Thank you. Okay, assuming that we've got to a point where we have completed a successful assignment, you go into a period of what I tend to call golden time. That's the downtime that I get to do the things that I normally don't have time to do. But I think it's important not to just simply unplug mentally and from work. There's a lot we can do in this time period, and I know from my own experience. You often do not know when the next assignment is coming. And if you don't do some of the items on this page, by the time the assignment arrives and you're asked to start in days, maybe a week, you realize that you haven't got time for some of the things here. So certainly I would strongly advocate debriefing yourself around the last assignment or further back, but really declutter. What are your key learnings? Let's get your files up to date. There are some things that you might want to get rid of, some things you want to retain for future use. CV is a dynamic document, as is your LinkedIn profile. Mine gets a refresh every single time I've completed an assignment because the context of what I've done, or the scale of what I've done, or the challenges that I've faced may have changed. Certainly, we need to be communicating really clearly what is our core proposition, what do we achieve. It goes back to the metrics, results, results, results every time. That is what helps to sell the benefit of employing you, is your value proposition. Case studies can be very useful. Separate conversation around whether you send them in with CVs, but certainly have them in a library ready to go. And look carefully at your gap analysis, your downtime, your golden time, call it what you will. That provides you the opportunity to upskill, refresh, learn something new. And I would not overlook that. It's, again, a very fast-paced world, and it's easy to get a little bit left behind. Okay, move on. Marketing. Website, I find highly debatable. I didn't have one for a long time. I now do. I spent a long time working on it with a pro who I got to know by chance. I think it's a really good shop window to have. Lots of people have said to me, I haven't got a single piece of business that I can identify through my website, but I think it's really valuable I have it. And that's my personal take on it as well. LinkedIn profile, look, it's the de facto platform, as we know. Absolutely essential that you have a really well constructed personal profile. I would say do things like professional headshot. It makes a big difference. If you have a company page, then use it. Post regularly, we've spoken about. And posting doesn't just mean, of course, fresh content. It also means commenting as well in threads and chats that are relevant to what you do and may increase a little bit of visibility by people who don't necessarily engage with you directly, but I think there'll be a very active lurker group out there, which includes potential clients, as in who's your key decision maker stakeholder? Is it CEO, CFO, COO, whatever it might be? Most of our key decision makers will be senior people. I think they're largely invisible in terms of their activity on LinkedIn. My take on it is they might consume content, but they might not raise their head above the parapet by actually commenting because they want to keep the inbound in-mails manageable. Lots of keeping in touch around email, teams, phones, face-to-face, and the like. Lots of ways to keep in touch with people. Okay, personal development. Qualifications we've spoken about. It will depend perhaps largely on what you do for a living as to whether these are one of the highest ranking things that a potential client will look for. What's the relationship between qualifications and experience? They probably go hand in hand. Ultimately, people want to engage people like us who can actually deliver, and we have a track record of doing that. But of course, the qualifications also validate who you are and what level of expertise you bring. Think carefully about your world and how it's changing in terms of your functional specialism, the sectors you operate in, what's happening in terms of tech. And if you can pre-research prospective clients, especially if you're going hunting for particular clients, then obviously do your research on those particular businesses as well. As Stuart mentioned, having a coach. Stuart and I have both used coaches in the past. We both agree they've been very valuable. They've done different things for us. It will, or they can help you develop your business and your thinking. Sometimes it's around personal as well as professional development. They give you that fresh external perspective. And in my experience, they can push you quite hard to think about things and develop things that you may know you need a hand with, but they take you outside of your comfort zone. I would also say make sure you're, if you go into the world of having a coach, make sure you're clear with yourself about what you want to achieve. Generic hand holding or back rubbing, it might feel comfortable, but it isn't necessarily going to take you anywhere. So I would say have a very clear view as to what you want to get from it and pick your coach accordingly. I have worked with one that I would say was exceptional, and a couple of people that I think delivered a generic program that I didn't attach any value to. So again, choose wisely. I would say on the last point, it's a good investment once you find the right person. Downtime, as I mentioned, I think it's golden time. That doesn't mean it's necessarily kick back, feet up, and cocktails, although there might be a little bit of that. But it is certainly a time when you can step back from the world of work and invest a little bit more in yourself. So whether that is literally take a holiday, have days off, catch up with the DIY list, which tends to be my priority, do more exercise than you might be able to when you're if you're working extended hours, see those friends that you might not see as often as you used to because everyone is too busy. But certainly it's very healthy to have some time out where you can take stock and recharge, ready for the next one. Also, think about your review of your business plan. As Stuart mentioned, this is it's a document, a framework that you need to have in place. Like most things that we do, it's not static. It will change over time. Think about it yourself, reflect on it with other people, really give yourself a chance for a health check, and make sure that you've updated that based upon the journey that you are on. because where you're going towards the end of your, or midway through to the later part of your interim career might be different to where you started. Your face-to-face network or network, whether it's face-to-face or virtual, but we all have a network. We have people in the IIM that we can reach out to. I would actually push people to use that IIM network a little bit more. We have a very active WhatsApp group, for example, and subgroups. There's some very good discussion, requests, advice, information shared, and engaging with that. I think the feedback from people is that they are glad that they've been an active participant. And then, of course, we have networking and CPD. As Stuart and I have found, been very rewarding working with the IIM the last couple of years to help develop content like this. Ultimately, I would just say keep your professional brain fully activated. The next assignment can arrive out of the blue, and I've certainly had that several times. So keep yourself abreast of what's happening in the world, whether that's broad, whether that's narrow in terms of industry sector and specialism, but keep yourself switched on and engaged with the developments that can help shape your thinking. And we are fairly on time, Charles, I think, for a 40-minute delivery. So over to Q&A.
Yeah, indeed. So far, just the one in there from David. Welcome, David. Will this trilogy cover how to win assignments?
I'll take that. So what we cover mostly through the trilogy is value proposition, how to communicate it, business development, how you get your message out to people, how you keep in touch. And that's the sort of the ongoing, relentless process by which you create opportunities that you then allows you to have a conversation with a potential customer, a internet service provider, or whoever you end up doing your business with.
Okay, thank you.
Looks like we've got one specifically for me on offset mortgage.
Yep.
Do I have to say this is not financial advice? So offset mortgage, okay, very briefly. They've been around for quite a long time, probably 20 years plus. An offset mortgage really is this. Depending on the bank or financial institution that you bank with, if you have your mortgage and your bank accounts and your savings accounts, which of course are different to investment portfolios and pensions and those sorts of things, you can link those accounts together such that, in simple terms, the interest that you pay each period, whether it's calculated daily, monthly, annually, you pay interest on your net balance. So, for example, you have £100,000 mortgage and 20,000 in cash, whether that's in your current accounts or your savings accounts. You're paying net interest on 80. It can be a highly effective way of reducing your mortgage interest. They typically operate very flexibly. So the other aspect around offset mortgages, they in effect operate like a very big overdraft. So you have a mortgage of 100,000, you pay it down to 60, you have a year out because the market's dreadful, you need to borrow 30, you draw it back down, you're on assignment, your day rate is healthy, you're over earning relative to your outgoings, you can pay the money back into your mortgage, you can bring that net balance back down. So it's a linked accounts, highly flexible financial structure with a bank or a similar financial institution.
Thank you, Ian. I can see Paul's put one in the chat as well. So just to say to everybody, please put your questions in the Q&A. It just helps for tracking. But for Paul, he's asking, is he someone starting out in this new life? What approach would you suggest for finding your first assignment?
Sounds like one for both of us, Ian, but I'll go first. So for me, when I started out, I can just about remember it. Basically, it was about really understanding what my current network was, and then making sure that I'd effectively, I had everybody in my address, everybody, and in a sort of, even back then, an electronic address book. And then it was about making contact with them, and making contact with them in such a way that you're not hitting on them. So basically, you're more interested in what's going on in their world than your world. And then gradually increasing your network. So, for example, where you work with somebody, they go into the address book, and you grow your network on. I mean, obviously, LinkedIn's a really good place to be able to do that. But you're growing your network, and then you're having a relentless keep in touch. And some people, obviously, I've got quite a long experience in this. Some people you might stay in touch with for a long time, you build a relationship with them, and then 7 years down the line, that you end up working with them. Or it could be if you've got enough of them, then you'll have somebody who say, "Okay, Stuart, need your help. What are you doing in 2 months' time?" So that's certainly the way that my business has evolved. So hopefully that's useful for you.
So I'll put a slightly different take on that because everyone's experience is different. So
Absolutely.
um, when I chose to go from permanent employment into interim, a couple of things were said to me that stick in my mind. Firstly, Ian, you're quite young for this. That was quite interesting because I went into this when I was 45. So I've just given my age away, given the earlier slide. But at 45, several of the leading ISPs who are professionals and well experienced in this area said, you are on the young side for interim management. Okay, well, that's fine. That's my situation. The next thing that was said to me by several, and again, some of the larger ISPs, and this really kind of stuck a little bit, was there's a big difference between employment and interim management. You're probably going to need to land an assignment which you will regard as a little bit too junior, but we need to see you do it because, and this is, and certainly my reflection over interim management and how personally I categorize things in terms of, well, permanent employment, we know what that looks like. In the non-employed world, what do we have? Well, you've got freelancers, contractors, and interim managements, and then possibly consultants as a fourth. I think there's a very, very distinct difference which sets interim managers apart, and that is strategy and delivery. And I think the second piece is the thing that really sets us apart. You have to be able to deliver, firstly, what it was agreed that you were going and do, but you also need to deliver based upon your knowledge, your experience, your intuition, your understanding of where to go to look for either the root causes of problems or opportunities the client hasn't seen. So yes, I took a more junior assignment for the first 5 months of my interim career. I was operating well below my experience level, but it put an assignment on the CV in an interim capacity and it ticked the box. I view it as a bit of a cynic having to do that, but for some ISPs, it was they're also managing a lot of risk from their perspective, and they need to see whether you understand that world, whether you can deliver in that remit, and make sure that you come out of the other side with a positive, evaluation from the client. And I would just keep yourselves with an open mind as to whether, especially if you're starting out, whether that's something that hoop you'll have to jump through, and whether you're willing to do it. Everyone's experience will be different, but certainly that was the start of my interim career.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Des asked, and David's actually answered, and I'll think we'll just add a little bit to that. Looking back at your careers, what percentage of assignments came from networking versus interim agencies? David,
I'll go first again. So when I started out, the first probably something like 18 months, I had a couple of interim agency assignments. And just to go back to my previous point, when you're building your network, you're operating across a number of different channels to market effectively. So in my network were, for argument's sake, 10 internet service providers, and they were specific consultants within the interim service providers. So going back to the point about the balance, I started out doing more interim stuff through agencies, and then over the years, the bulk of my work has been either direct or working with other people who have businesses like mine.
okay, thank you. Ian, do you want to build?
Yeah, I would. I suppose I would use a percentage approach. I think probably 50% of my assignments have come through ISPs. 25% consulting practices and 25% network, ballpark. One of my reflections, and it becomes stronger each year that goes by. I was networking last week, and I said to somebody, in this proverbial black book that we carry around in our minds, I tear more pages out each year than I put in. So my understanding of who's who, the trust-based relationships that I build in the ISPs, I think as you go on this journey, you will understand and learn who do you really gel with, who can you rely upon, who picks up the phone when you call and knows that you will answer the phone when they call you. That is a decreasingly small percentage. So it is absolutely quality over quantity. The world is awash with ISPs, recruiters who think they're ISPs, but actually they're contingent recruiters, but just think interim will attract different people. I would really take the time to understand and build the relationships with the ISPs that actually can help you and that you can help them. There is a huge amount of trust-based relationship in this world. If you are selected to go into a client, it is their reputation and yours that you take with you, and you need to operate accordingly. It's not contracting. It is not sit in the seat and do the work that you are given to do. And if you don't like it, leave tomorrow, who cares? And that might be unfair to contractors. But in the world of interim, I think there's a lot of reputation that you carry. People need to understand who you are, how you operate, are you reliable? What's your integrity level, and all those things that go with it.
Okay, thank you. I just build my own experience as 21 year interim. Mine is about 65% own network, 35% provider. And I would add, I have friends who've never worked for a provider, and I have friends who've never worked not through a provider. So it's anything on the scale, basically. And there are multiple surveys from multiple sources that will give you a split, but it's a reality. It's a mixed economy.
Just one thing to add on the ISPs, I think it's worth mentioning. Be patient with ISPs. The ISP does not exist to find you an assignment. They exist to find the right person for the client they've been engaged by. I have many people in the, if we look in the IIM annual survey world, many of the platinum ISPs I have a relationship with. I picked up the current assignment. The two people who work in the practice I'm working through, I've known each of them for at least 10 years. And this is the first time we've actually done any business together. But the relationship is 10 years old, at least. And that is the investment you need to put in place, I believe, with the right people and build that understanding. They need to know you as a person. And that doesn't always come through doing some work. It involves having contact, having conversations, and the like. It is absolutely worth building the relationship and taking the time to invest the effort and the time to do it.
Okay, a couple of minutes on questions still to go. One from Giuliano, who is Italian-British dual citizen, lives in Italy for tax purposes, has Italian company, VAT, etc. Do any of us see any problem in operating in the UK issuing Italian invoices?
I don't know. I think that's probably more of a technical point.
Yeah, I also couldn't give a clear answer on that. I would imagine most or a good number of the top tier ISPs will be used to trading with multi-currency.
Yeah.
I just think it's a conversation to have with each one.
I tend to agree there. Okay, last question. Where is it? Paul, you all described 24, 25, 26 challenging years. What's been your approximate assignment percentage over that time?
So mine's been low, but I'm in a sort of a semi-retirement mode, so not critical for me, but I appreciate that's not the same for everybody.
I would say mine has been low as well. I have been out of assignment for far longer than I would like. I've learned over my interim journey that, as we said earlier in the slides, you have to be either have to be, or you have to learn to be as comfortable as you can be with uncertainty. It is rare that for interims to go back to back to back with clients. That said, the market's been dreadful. You might find people around you get more worried about it than you do if you're not on assignment. My take on it is, if you prepare financially and you have a good reserve to live from, without being too flippant, my personal outlook is no one's going to die. We're going to be fine. The family will have a place to live and food to eat, and we'll still do things. I also know that when assignments come, the financial recovery will be fairly quick. So I think it is an entirely, you also have a lot more financial flexibility running a business as to how you stream your income. If you're in a permanent role, you get paid by the month. And when you are out of that role, your income stops. And then it's zero until you're in a new role. You cannot recover the time you've lost. It's a different financial mentality and methodology when you're running a business.
Okay, thank you, Ian. That's going to tie us for questions. So I'm just going to flick through the last couple of minutes. Thank you for attending, everybody. The next webinar is Building a Business on May the 13th, if you haven't already signed. And the third one, pre and post assignment, is on June the 10th. You can find all of these on the IIM website at iim.org.uk/events. Not too difficult to find, and you'll find everything that's going on the program at the moment. There are some face-to-face events and various things online. Feedback loop is here. We would appreciate you while you're here. If you don't mind, please take a minute to do a very quick survey, which will help everybody understand what we need to adjust going on. So I will leave this on the screen for a minute while you just scan with your phones, because I'm sure you're all sitting there with your phones. Whilst you do that, thank you. It helps us, as I say. I'm sure you've all scanned by now, so while you're busy doing it, I'm just going to flick. IIM, for those of you who are not current members, and I think everybody on the call is either a current member or an applicant, so I'm probably not going to spend long on here, other than to re-emphasize the points that were made. There's a good community, in particular in the WhatsApp community. There's very good chat between lots of people, and you could see members helping each other out with one thing or another. And it goes to the point that Ian and Stuart made about it's quite a lonely profession at times. So having a network of fellow interims you can share issues with is helpful. And I'm going to leave that on the screen for a second. You can have a very quick read. All those things are part of what you get as your membership. As is that, and as I say, because I've noticed you're all either applicants or existing members, early joiners. We won't spend time too long on there. And that is actually the end of the slides. Just to clarify, the slides themselves will be packaged up with the video. This will all be shared with you in the next couple of days. And we hope to see you at the next session. Please, if you haven't done that, do take a minute to do the survey. It's very helpful to us. And with that, if there are no other questions, we have 1 minute, and if not, we will close the session early by 1 minute. Very generous to give you a minute back in your life. So if nothing else, thank you very much to Stuart. Thank you to Ian. Thank you to all for attending today. We look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.